Testing and right. Okay. Hi there. So today we'll be making this Unity project over here. We'll be having a Live2D avatar who has a range of expressions and motion and body motions you can pick through, and this will serve as a basis for you to get into using Live2D. And the entire reason I'm doing this is because, well, Live2D integration, the Cubism SDK integration with Unity is not a very well covered topic. The last tutorial I think was from like 3 or 4 years ago, so I want to make something current. Plus, I'm working on a project that uses Live2D. So without further ado, let me show you guys what we'll be working on. So here I have a range of expressions, and well, I'm not going to click on them because that's just a text. It's just a text mesh pro item. I mean, it's just a text mesh pro game object. Done. There are vehicles walking, like driving by my house. It's incredibly annoying. I don't quite know if you guys can hear them. But other than that, little distractions out of the way, I'm gonna go ahead and say I want her. I'm just gonna cycle through the facial expressions first, real quick. She is now sad. She is moping around. She is supposed to be blushing. I do not know why this is not too apparent. Oh, it is. Never mind. It is very apparent. Um, 6. She's angry now. She's smiling. Very. She's smiling a lot. That's concerning. And she's back to her default state. So those are her expressions, and these are her the little body motions we can do. So like disagreeing, agreeing, doing whatever the heck this is, looking looking to the side, being anxious, and well, you have all that. You can go ahead and attach attach a to it. Let's say she's angry and she's looking side. She's not very happy. Familiar with it, but I still wanted to get something out there for people who have 3D. So I'm gonna cut to the chase. I need the Cubism SDK. Go in here to the cube, like to the website live2d.com/en/download/Cubism SDK. The link is in the description, so don't worry about that. We're in download Cubism SDK for Unity, and I already have it downloaded in my downloads folder over here. Ta-da! So next what you're gonna need is a Unity 2D project, and you're just gonna open this up. You're gonna go, hey, go to assets. Oh, before we get to that, make sure you download Live2D. So you might want to go to try Cubism. It's download Cubism. You scroll down, accept whatever the case is, and just then download the version of Live2D. But I'm gonna assume you already have Live2D set up and everything's fine. You have a model to work with. If not, you can also go to Live2D models free, I think it was. Yes. So there's a set of sample models available provided by Cubism themselves, by Live2D themselves. So I'll link that in the description as well. You can use that. And well, these and you can use any of these models. I don't. It doesn't really matter. Just have to realize that animations may differ, but the point is you don't have to follow me one for one. Like for this tutorial, I think maybe I'm just gonna use the assets I already have, but the files aren't that big. So you can download the trial version of Live2D to see if you want to try it out. And the trial version gives you the ability to use the pro files, so that's great. And you can download whichever one of these files you want. And well, yeah. So links in the description. Now, what you're gonna do is you're gonna go into Unity. You're gonna go to Assets. Wait, no. Yes, it is Assets. Scroll down, Import Package and Custom Package. Now, when you get a custom package, you just go to your downloads folder and look for the file you want. In my case, it's Cubism SDK for Unity and import. And you open it, they decompress it. It'll take its sweet time. Don't worry. It's a pretty big SDK. So don't be too um, too put off when the thing takes like a while. So you see, this is pretty large. So, oh, they do give you a model with the thing. Okay, so apparently you do get a model, like a Live2D model when you import it. I think it was models. I think the yes, so you apparently get Koharu and Natori. Well, oh, regardless, but then import them. It'll take its sweet time. I'm gonna go ahead and cut to the point when it does finish importing, so it doesn't wait that long. Oh, and another thing. This is going to take a while, so do not be put off by that. All right, and we're back. I have finished importing the Live2D Cubism SDK into Unity. All right, so let's get right into it. I'm going to go ahead and close off the Epsilon file that I have open. I'm going to create a new folder. I'm going to call it L2D models. And I've gone ahead and downloaded Epsilon from the site, so you can do that. You can do that. If you want to drag that into Unity, import that, and once you're done importing, you have to restart Unity because Unity be like that. Something like the Cubism SDK is not does not work too well with Unity sometimes, and it doesn't well do what it's supposed to do. And this was something that was put up on the site itself that you have to restart Unity. So please go ahead and do that. I'll be right with you guys when I am done restarting Unity. All right, and I am back. So now we have, well, a sample scene, an empty scene. I'm going to use a sample scene. You can use whatever scene you want, but so I'm gonna get right into it. So we're gonna go into the Epsilon file, go to runtime, and then what you may notice is that you have a file called Epsilon prefab, or whatever the um, whatever the asset is prefab. And if you go into the original file, you should not have that. So what happens here, like if you go to, in my case, downloads runtime, um, I do not have an Epsilon prefab. So what happens here is that when you import when you import the prefab, when you import the model itself, it generates a prefab, which we're just going to go ahead and drag into the scene. Now, right now you won't see anything, but make sure you have everything centered and whatnot, and hit play. Again, Live2D Cubism's SDK is a very weird SDK, but it does take a while. And once you run it, you'll see a model there. It's really tiny, not the best. So we're gonna go ahead and scale it up. So I think we do times 5 maybe. Yeah, 5 and 5. How about 5.5? No, 6. 6 and 6. That looks pretty good, yeah. So I'm gonna hit W and just position her the way I want to look on screen. Make sure her positioning is set prim and proper. Can I say that? I just said it, so I'm not gonna can change what I just said. Anyway, we have our model in the thing. Hit play. We hit play, and she does absolutely nothing. And well, that's expected. We don't have an animator on her. So let's go ahead and do that. Unity is already being gracious enough to create an animator for us. So let's go ahead and add that to the character. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna hit select epsilon, and you have her inspect everything. I'm just gonna close and minimize a bunch of this stuff. I don't really need any of these. Like there are a lot of scripts attached to this, and Working with this, it's like working with the prefab you get itself is probably going to be in your best interest. So what you're going to do is you're going to go down to animator and select controller. And in my case, I already have the epsilon controller, so I'm just going to select that, and we have the epsilon, and we have epsilon. So this does absolute nothing. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into the animator, and well, let me maximize. No, I'm not going to maximize it. I'm just going to make this a little bit more viewable and zoom in. God damn it. Unity. Let me is that all? Okay, then fine. Anyway, we have a blank animator. So what we'll just go ahead and get her an idle motion. And what you're gonna do is you're gonna go into your motion, so wherever your motions are kept, and drag in idle. And ta-da! Of course, these animations are up to you. If you're using your own Live2D model, you'll have to make your own idle animation. And that'll probably be another video for another day. But for now, this is the scope of today's tutorial. Now, when you drag this in, you'll notice when you drag the animation in, you'll notice that the entry node state it defines the idle as your default transition, the default expression, and that's completely fine, honestly. Save that, and well, yeah, let's go ahead and hit play. And when we do hit play, and when this come up, you'll notice that epsilon is now moving. See? And we have movement. Now, this is going to be, from this point onwards, this is going to be a pretty standard Unity animator um, Unity animator segment. So if you already know your basics and you know what you're doing, go ahead and you can go ahead and skip ahead. But right now, I'm like, if you don't know what you're doing, you can stay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to open the epsilon file, and it should open the viewer. Now, I like to keep the viewer open so I can see what animations I'm using. At least that's what I did the last time I did this. So give it its little time, and you have here. So yeah, to when it actually does load up. Right. So now I have my model open, and as you can see, it is gonna like the model is gonna be in its standard idle animation here. You can see various expressions, whatnot. But that's not the goal of today's video. And I'm gonna go ahead and run through some of these animations to figure out which one's which. So I've pretty much figured out the animations I want. But for this tutorial, I am just gonna go ahead and wait. Yeah, you double click this. So you know what, and pick some animations to play. Let's pick three. So I'm going to close this code. I'm going to go into um, Unity, and okay, so I want this motion where she's like angry, which is m underscore sp 04. So m underscore sp 0 sp underscore 04. Now I'm just going to go and drag this animation in and say, and I'm going to name it I'm really mad at you. Yeah. So I'm going to plop that in there. Let's get another animation for her. How about now? Yes, I'll do that. I'm going to do sp underscore 03. So 03, drag that in and say, please no more. That sounds very wrong. I'm so embarrassed. Right, so we have those. And well, another important thing I do have to remind you, something I didn't realize when I was first doing this, you have to make sure that your animations are not looping. So I'm gonna do is I'm gonna click this over here. I'm gonna click the little node. I keep calling it a node. I'm gonna click this little state here, go to motion, click that, open this. So like loop time, just deselect it. Do the same for I'm so embarrassed. Go here, say loop time, no. Control save. Now we have our two states. And you may be wondering, no, yeah, we have states, but they aren't connected. And right you are. So you can right click any state, make transition. Do the same for this. We have two transitions. Grab these, move them to the side just a little bit. Actually, I'll stack them right over here. I'm gonna make a transition between I'm really mad at you, make transition to default, make transition to default. And we have the graph in a way which we can use. Now, next thing we're gonna do is trigger these animations. Now we know for a fact that by default entry goes into idle, but we need a way to go into these two animations over here. So I'm really mad at you, I'm so embarrassed. So for that, I'm gonna make a trigger. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go here under animator, parameters, click this little plus icon down here and just put a trigger and say mad trigger. You can call it whatever you want. Essentially, I'm going to create two triggers and say embarrassed trigger, right? So now that you have the two triggers, we have to go ahead and say, hey, when this trigger is when this trigger is called, do this. So when this trigger is triggered, trigger this animation. And you see, we don't have like any state to this, sure, but we have no way to get there because there's no condition. And that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna select this little line, the connection between any state and I'm really mad at you. Put the little connection there, add, and then yeah, so select mad trigger, and that's the trigger there. Now you select the same thing for I'm so embarrassed, and when you add this, you'll get the trigger and just say embarrassed trigger. So yeah, now that you have your triggers, let's go ahead and start writing some code. So I'm gonna go into assets. I'm gonna go ahead and create a folder, scripts, and we're going to create a new C# script, call it catch char anim. Yeah, so cat anim. It's going to go ahead and open that up in Visual Studio. I'll be back when Visual Studio opens. All right, so we are in, we are in Visual Studio. So now I'm going to go ahead and, well, I'm going to keep my start and update functions. Let me delete them. It'll help my code, me explain my code better. So first off, I'm gonna go ahead and say, um, we can get to that when we want to, but right now we want to go ahead and declare a private animator. Okay, this is going to be a capital. Yes, private animator, and call it char anim. I'm gonna go ahead and create another thing called private game object self char. Yeah, you can call it whatever you want. It's just a reference to the game object itself. Actually, I don't think we'll need this. uh Actually, it's fine. I'm gonna go ahead and leave that anyway because we may need this. Yes, we will most certainly need it anyway. Next, the other thing we need to do, actually no, we can get to that next later. No, I'm going to create a start, a private void start. Oh, actually, just a void start would be fine. It doesn't really matter. Essentially, void start, and we go ahead and declare anim is equal to get component, a little triangular brackets, and then animator. Animator, two little circular brackets, the two normal brackets, and semicolon. Now we have that. I'm going to go ahead and go down and write void update. Yeah, so we have that. And we'll go ahead and create another, remove the private. Then we're going to create another method and call it void facial, no, not facial expressions come at the very end. We're going to create character motion. I'm going to go ahead and create that method. Is it a method or a function? I keep calling it a method, but I think in object-oriented programming, you call it a function. I have to confirm this bit of information. But now let's go ahead and define a few, like go ahead and do the animation real quick, honestly. So you're going to say if um, input dot get key down within the little brackets, you do key code dot wait, key code dot q. Go ahead and declare the little curly brackets, create that, and that we're gonna go ahead and say which was char anim dot it was set trigger. Gonna put this semicolon there. And if I recall, the name of the first trigger was mad trigger. So mad trigger, and do it the way you did, I guess. And another thing would be I'm gonna go ahead and duplicate this and say else if w set trigger embarrassed trigger. Control save and hop right back into Unity if my code actually does compile. Hello, Unity. Would you let me in? Yeah, so issue with my PC is that it takes its sweet time recompiling everything and whatnot when I'm recording. So anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and grab epsilon, and what we what I didn't do was add character animator char anim on him. So I'm going to on ahead, I'm gonna drop that in there, and we play. So if my code is not jank and broken, we should have her moving. Yeah, so we have our idle animation. I'm gonna press Q. Oh, I just realized the one thing I did wrong. Yeah, so the reason we don't see the animations is because we don't actually call them. We don't actually have a way to check where the thing happens. So I'm just going to go ahead and say void char-anim, character motion. So I'm going to go to the update function. Yes, I'm going to call it the function. Character motion, two little bracket, no, not character controller. Character motion, the little circular brackets, and semicolon. Now, this should fix it once the project goes ahead and loads. Oh. So you see that she's in an idle animation. You can press Q. There we go. She's angry at us. You press W. She's very embarrassed. So we have these two animations, and they go right back into um, idle afterwards. So that's all good. Now we need the facial expressions. This is where the tricky part comes in, honestly. But if you follow along, it should be fine. So here we have two options. One, we can go ahead and rewrite the the facial expression script, which is going to be a long process, or we can use the Cubism expression controller. Now, what we're going to do here is that we're going to go into assets, Live2D models, epsilon, runtime, and you see this file called expressions, right? These expressions are not animation folders. So you're like, so we can't use the animator for this. Instead, we'll be writing a good old script. So what you're gonna do here is that you're gonna go ahead and find your runtime.expression list or expression list asset. Essentially, if you go ahead and select this and open this up, I, if I am not mistaken, this is a scriptable object. Essentially, this is an object that has a array, or a list. I think that's a list that holds the various expressions the character can do. And say you have a few extra expressions here. It's going to increase the size of this, increase the size of your list, and voila. I am not mistaken. You can right click, create, and Text Mesh Pro. No, Live2D Cubism, animation controller for Cubism mask, original workflow. Anyway, I guess it's something that comes with the project itself. Anyway, we have our runtime expression list, and we're just gonna hop into epsilon, go down here, select this, and give my runtime expression list. Ta-da! Now, a runtime expression list does not expressions give. That is a very weird way of putting it. But let's get down to actually adding expressions. We do not need game object self character. So first off, we need to refer to the custom cube, like the expression controller. So we're going to call it private. Now this is where it gets a bit stupid. We go live2d dot cubism dot framework dot expression dot cubism expression controller, and then you go expression control, and then ta-da. Now control expression control. You had to go through that whole thing. So it took me quite a while to figure this out. So I'm going to go and start. I'm going to paste expression control. I missed an N. Control, and say is equal to get component, the two little triangular thingies, and the two little brackets. And I'm not going to copy paste this whole thing. I'm not going to write the whole thing. I'm just going to copy this and paste it here. And we have our expression control. Now, we need a way to update our expressions. So I'm going to go ahead and say, I'm going to create a new function, call it void facial expressions to create that. Let me quickly fix that and that. There we go. That is much nicer. We have facial expressions. Create this, and we have this function. And now I want my facial expressions to be controlled by my numeric keys. So that's the top row. So I'm gonna go ahead and say if input dot get key down, the two little circular brackets, key code dot. And here's the thing, you have to be very specific about which keys you're referring to. Now, in my case, I'm using the alpha, like I'm using alpha 0 through alpha 9. And what this means is that it's what this is referring to is the top row of numbers above your key. If you want to use your number pad, you go no, 0 pad. Let's see. It's keypad, yes, keypad. So you go to those numbers you're looking there. There are keypad 0 through 9. But in my case, I do not have a keypad on my laptop, so I'm just going to go alpha 0 and put the little curly brackets and pop in there. Now, similar to cact animation, we go cact expression control. Now, one thing I did not explain earlier was how the animations were controlled. I mean, the expressions were controlled. I mean, if we pop into Unity, we have our various expressions here, right? Now we're going to hop into Epsilon, select her, select Cubism expression controller, then have current expression index. It's going to say 0, expression changes. 1, expression changes. 2, expression changes. 3, expression changes. Now, if you're wondering why I started with 0, it's that lists and arrays start from 0. So programming. So that's what we're going to do. We are just going to go ahead and say refer to the index of the array, I mean the list. If I am not mistaken, it is a list. The list, the index of the animation, the expression on the list. So let's get down to that. So let's go say, wait, no, I think it was expression control dot current expression index, which I believe you had an integer, yes. So int uh, index is equal to say 0, semicolon, and control C, control, no wait, just highlight that, control D, else if, oh, let me remove that over there, and we have that, I'm going to say alpha 1, index 1, control D, alpha 2, index 2, and you can, this I do alpha of 1, alpha 2, alpha 3, there we go. And yeah, you just keep doing that. And with that, we are pretty much done this tutorial. It was incredibly simple. And well, I hope it helped. Oh, and I almost forgot. You copy the expression, like facial expressions, hop into update, some like put that down, and you're done. Ta-da. And you have expressions. I'm just gonna hop into Unity. If my code decides to compile anytime today, it would be absolutely lovely. And we just hit play. If it ever decides to open anytime today, that would be amazing. So we have our various expressions. She's angry, she's that, and different animations. Oh, she's like, oh God, please no. Expression two, she's sad. Please stop. I'm very embarrassed. Ah. But yeah. So there we go. We have our various animations. It wasn't that hard, and honestly, I do think that, well, with a little bit of messing around, you can get to a really good level with your work. Because I ended up tinkering around with that specifically, and I have this cool thing. I have my own little background. I have my character here, various animations, whatnot, and ta-da! So that's what we've made. Um, this is a 34-minute long tutorial, and not gonna cut it because one, I'm very lazy. Two, I just really don't want to, spend too much time on a tutorial because I make these for fun, and well, you can skip ahead. With that being said, thank you for watching. I hope you guys would subscribe, maybe like, comment, whatever